Good morning, YouTube. It is still morning here in North Carolina, morning-ish. Welcome to Boho Jewel. If I'm a little loopy, I apologize. It's been raining here for like 4 days straight, so I think it's starting to affect me. Anyway, I wanted to share something I've been playing with you guys today in making some resin pendants with nail polish. So what inspired me to try this was I saw a few places online where people were doing that, where they were using nail polish to color the resin, and you know, I thought I'd play around with it. I thought, why not? I've got a ton of nail polish at home, why not play around with it? So I got a really nice effect in a couple of pieces. I love how this one turned out. It actually almost from a distance looks like a stone or something, and I used the nail polish in the front and then I filled it in with black glitter in the background. This one was a lot of fun too. I kind of played around with filling the resin in different ways, stringing the polish in there. And then this one I kind of swirled it around, and this is all polish. None of this is any kind of other glitter. It's a glittery polish, and I think you'll be able to see kind of where it's layered up in there. So I'm going to share with you, now here's some glitter right here, so I kind of lied about that. That's some glass glitter. So I want to share with you my hits and misses and what worked and what didn't work, because I see tutorials online all the time, and they're not always very accurate. So here's one of my misses. Now this is actually, it's a little heart shape, but there's so much nail polish in there that it never actually cured. So I don't know how much it'll show on the camera, but you can see where it's still really, really soft. And this is like 2 or 3 days later. So some of them do stay a little softer for longer. I think putting the nail polish in there, it's a different kind of chemical, so you can see how really squishy that is. It's going to affect the dry time of your resin, so that's something to keep in mind. Now my biggest suggestion, not to end up with these, because I had a couple of them that turned out like this, don't use a ton of the polish in your pieces if you want to use this. I've seen where you can add a few drops of polish to the resin itself to create a color, but my experience with that was barely noticeable. So just adding a few drops into the resin to mix it, like I showed with some of my videos with the glitter and things like that, you don't really get a really full color, a really nice color. So that didn't really work, and I feel like if you add a bunch, you end up with, sorry, my camera's wobbling, this situation where it's so spongy, like I can't even use it. I just kept it as a demo to share with you guys. I really do like the swirly effects though. I think that's kind of neat, and I've already glazed these pieces. That's why they're so shiny. And I think that's just kind of fun. So that's what I'm going to share with you today, and I'm going to go through some steps of how to do that successfully. So I have my little circle tray here, and I've already got some resin mixed up. So like with a lot of resin things, when you're doing this, you're going to be working in layers, because if you try to add everything all at once, you might not get the effects that you want. So I'm going to start with the first layer, and then I'm going to show you some pieces that I've already started. So always make sure your resin is thoroughly mixed. Try to get all your air bubbles out there as much as possible. And I start with just a little bit. So I'm going to just do this one in the center so it's easy for you to see. So I'm going to fill it in, since I'm using the polish for some dripping effects, just kind of maybe about halfway. And I'll show you just to give you an idea of what the polish does. And now, as always, with resin, you need to plan ahead and kind of have a game plan of what you're going to be doing and how much resin you're going to need, because of course the resin, once it's mixed, it has a short shelf life. So you have about 30 to 45 minutes with most resins. I find about 30 minutes before it starts getting kind of thick and stubborn and isn't going to work with you maybe as well as you'd like it to. So let me get those filled in. And I used several different types of nail polishes, so I really don't know as far as brands. I don't think that the brand is a big deal. I have a couple of cheaper ones I played with. One thing I did notice is that the gel polishes tend to almost flower out a little more, so I'll show you that. And all I did, and this is a gel polish, and it's a little bit of process, I just let it drip in there. Oh. And give it a couple of little drops. So you can see how it almost has a bloom. You know, when you're talking about watercolor and how it blooms. So you can see that, how it blooms around there like a little sun. Let's see, and then let me show you the white one that's not a gel polish. So you're still going to get a little bit of a bloom, but I find that with a lot of the gel polishes it's a little more, which is something fun that you can kind of play with. So you can just kind of drip things in there and create kind of this really nice effect. And that's what I did here. And you can even layer the polishes on top of each other, because as it dries, it's going to show through. They kind of push each other out of the way. See? Just like that. It's not, now this isn't something I feel like can be a super exact science, so don't stress out about it too much, but it's just really, I feel like it's something kind of fun to just play with, something to be a little flexible with if you struggle with making things too perfect all the time, maybe. I'm like that with a lot of things when it comes to art and things like this. Whoops, obviously. I'm not super worried about being super perfect all the time. But you can just kind of play around with it and let it do its thing, and it'll bubble through and layer through. Now, you can leave this as it is, and you see how they kind of move in and out of each other there. Let me see, I'm going to add a little more glitter into this one. Now, one thing I'll say too, I noticed, I'm going to show you another little technique as soon as I finish getting these in here. Just kind of swoop it along a little. I wouldn't put the brush in the resin, because then you're going to end up with resin on your brush, obviously, right? But just let it be kind of a loose, fun exercise. Now, as you saw in this one, I've got the glitter in the front. That's not going to take a whole lot of planning work. Of course, you can put your glass glitter down in the bottom first, but anything heavy is going to sink right to the bottom. So this can be an afterthought as well, and that's what I'm going to show you now. I've got some of this glass glitter that I got at Michael's, and I'm just going to drop a little pinch of it in these just to, you know, just for fun. And some of them may float to the top, but eventually they're going to also sink down to the bottom. And then what I'm going to do is let that dry and then finish it off with another layer. So with these right here, I'm going to show you something else that I was playing around with, and I'm going to add just a couple of drops of polish. And it really doesn't take much, you can see, especially on a smaller pendant. Let's see. Put a little silver in there. And this is just something fun to play around with, so you can get really creative. Come on, drip drop. And you can do almost a marbling effect as well. And I'll show you one that I did that with in just a second. Oh. Come on. So what I do is you can just take a paper clip. Like I've got a little paper clip that I bent up all crazy, and you can just kind of swirl it through and create like a little marble effect as much as you want. Now, something you'll notice, and keep it clean in between, so wipe it off. You'll see right here, I don't know how well that picked up, but you need to kind of do that pretty quickly right away, because you see how it's picking up right here? It's almost like it's got, you know, like pudding skin, where once it's in there for a couple of minutes, and I don't even know that it's been a couple of minutes, it'll start, the nail polish will start to set in that resin pretty quickly. So that's something to keep in mind. So here's one that I started with a marbling technique where I added the colors in and it's already dry and set. And I actually used a little bit of acrylic paint in this one, experimenting around with the acrylic paint. And this one's got little splatters of watercolor paint. Not a big fan of trying to do that. I think the paint right here created kind of an interesting effect, but you can't really drip the paint in here the way that you could nail polish. So what I did was I just took a popsicle stick and I dipped my paint in it and swirled it through, just like I did the little marbling technique I showed you. And once that layer was dry, I added a layer with a little bit of polish and did the marbling through there. Now, a note on this, there's quite a bit of polish and stuff going on in these, and in fact, they've been sitting for a couple of days, and I can still feel how tacky it is. So, not appearance tacky, touch tacky, just for the record. So I'm going to finish these up by putting a layer of just resin on top. It'll make it easier for them to pop out, and don't even stress about these little places on the side. That'll clean up pretty easily too, and it'll pop out as well. So that's a little tip on that. So the next thing I want to show you is, and I know you can't see it because it's clear, but I've already put a little layer, just a really thin layer of resin right here. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of polish and drip it on there so you can see the difference. So that's another way that you can layer it up. So you see it's just going to ball up a little more rather than blooming out. This is how I work, you guys. You're getting an inside scoop of the messiness that is me. And you can even kind of play around with painting on the surface of it then. Right? So then you have a little more flexibility to whatever you want to do there. And you can actually touch it down because it's dry. So then what I would do is do whatever I want to with this to kind of get it where I want it to look. Whoops, sorry. And then do another layer of resin just like I've layered these and let them dry, and then continue working. So that's what I've been playing around with. Again, I don't think worrying about the brand of polish is a big deal. I noticed that the gel polishes as well as the regular polishes, as far as dry time, you know, if you put a ton of resin in there, it's going to take a lot longer to cure. And if there is any, just a little bit of stickiness in your resin still, just putting a nice gloss glaze over that is going to solve that problem. And then you can hang your pendant, you can use a bail and create your pendant, or do whatever else you want to do with it. Now, of course, as in this example, if it's super soft and it's just not going to cure at all, then, you know, it's not usable. I don't think any amount of glaze is going to help that, but that's how we learn, right? Live and learn. So I hope this sparks a little bit of creativity for you guys. I would love to see what you're doing, if you've used polish in your resin pieces, or, you know, if it's something you're going to play around with now. Let me know any tips that you have about it and any thoughts and ideas that you have. I'd love to see them, and I'd love to see some pictures too. So if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please do. I know I've been incognito for a little while. I've had a lot of shows going on, so it's been probably a couple of weeks since I posted a video, but I will be posting videos on a regular basis. Lots of crafts and lots of business tips as well. I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for watching.